welcome to Profit Visibility Lab. Today, we are going to go deep into understanding recognition dilution, our pattern for this week in the archetypes of scale. And the key here is that the pattern is one of many that we recognize in an environment where the pressure is that there is more visibility than ever before, but not more clarity. And so today we're going to look at the support and the systems that we can use to identify this pattern, but also we're going to look at the proof, the mathematical proof of how this pattern affects our business. Okay, so one second. So the first thing is that as we're looking at a pattern like recognition dilution, we want to understand that we're not just talking about posting. We're not just talking about comments or putting information out on different platforms. What we're looking at is how those activities actually impact revenue flow. Because even though we may be out on social media or doing events or whatever it is that you do for demand creation, we have to keep in mind that the end result, what we're looking for is to create revenue movement as part of our revenue system. So visibility is to provide recognition at a level where someone who is continually being exposed to our business through whatever mechanism we choose, that it is driving movement to conversations that have revenue associated as the end result. Okay, qualified conversations. So, and what we're looking to create here is we want to create a flow. And so flow is when the visibility actually generates movement, revenue movement in the direction of revenue. Constraint is when there's more visibility, but recognition weakens. And so we're not generating those qualified conversations that move towards revenue. And I just want to clarify that a conversation is not necessarily a conversation, a verbal conversation between two humans. It's whenever there's an exchange of information that can lead to revenue movement. So it can be many things, but the point is that visibility should be contributing to the creation of recognition that drives the movement to revenue. Now, in order to be able to impact the revenue system, we have to look at the distortion. Where is the distortion happening? Where exactly is it that I'm not getting recognition? Now, if you've been following the Profit Visibility Lab, you're familiar with other patterns like signal stall, like signal flattening. And at first glance, these all sound like the same thing. But what we're looking at is the nuances between the different locations of where these constraints or lack of recognition are occurring. Sometimes it's happening because we put out our different, whatever we're doing for demand generation, and it's not consistent enough. And so the signal stalls. You had signal and stalls. Sometimes it's because of the volume that we're able to produce connections or demand generation. Because of the volume, the signal flattens. So there was recognition, and now there's not so much recognition anymore. Well, with this week's pattern, recognition dilution, there is recognition, but because of the variability in what we are sending out as signal, okay, the recognition is scattered, and so we're not making the connection. People don't know who we are and what we do. That's the difference. So it's important that we understand that the distortion has to be visible, because if you scale a distortion and you don't really know what the cause of it is, it's not going to translate into revenue. And again, visibility, the reason we're doing this is so that there can be revenue movement. Now, this week's pattern, when we talk about recognition dilution, is a demand pattern. So we're wanting to move in our system. We want to move from generating demand into conversion, which is, where we're getting clients, right? So in this particular pattern, it's not about sales performance. It's not at all. It's whether the visibility, whatever you do, is creating enough recognition in the marketplace that it's going to support a repeatable revenue model, right? So if you scale before you have that level of recognition, then you're not going to be able to create the repeatable revenue that you want, okay? Now, when we're looking at this, we're looking at the gap that is created by what we require to meet our revenue goal, and what is the actual behavior that we're conducting in the business. So we're going to compare what the system actually needs to produce to meet a specific revenue target, and then we're going to look at what it is producing. An example, okay? So we're looking at this gap because that is going to reveal the distortion. So the pattern for recognition dilution is, again, more people see it, but few understand it. They're not quite sure what they do. They may like you, they may consume some content, but even though the business is seen, it's not making the impression. It's not building recognition with the people who are seeing it that would move them to want to take an action to move towards a qualified conversation. Okay. Now, so what this looks like in the field is that you're doing more posting, there's more visibility, you're out there, you've got whatever your posting mechanism is, or whatever events you do, or whatever you're using for demand generation, and you see all the activity, but the activity is not consistently becoming revenue movement, right? So there's a lot of activity, but it's not converting. So where the signal breaks down is that fewer people are really understanding the problem that you solve, the value that you bring to the marketplace, why it's relevant, why it is relevant, and why it matters right now, right? So in the past, you may have had some level of recognition, but it's not guaranteed because things are always moving faster. And so just because you have visibility in the past does not mean that you're going to have stronger recognition in the future. Now, our model business today is a B2B service firm. Target revenue, $100,000, average deal size, $20,000, close rate, 25%, and we need 20 qualified conversations in order to move the business forward. Now, the system baseline is, this is what we're doing, 12 visibility actions. So whatever that is, it could be posting, it could be events, it could be email, whatever it is that you use to generate demand. You have 8,000 impressions, so and 200 engaged audience. In other words, some people are really picking up what you're putting down, right? And then you have, out of that 200 engaged audience, 200 person engaged audience, you actually generate 8 qualified conversations. And then that's a 4, so that would be like a 4% recognition rate and $40,000 in revenue, right? You got visibility, but you still aren't making the revenue number you hope for, okay? So it's not compounding. Now, you double down on your visibility actions. Now you have 16,000 impressions, 400 engaged audience, and 12 qualified conversations. 12. That's a 3% recognition conversion. and a $60,000 in revenue. So it's more stability, but you're still short on the revenue. So it's not effort, right? That's the pressure we're feeling. It's more visibility, but no clarity on why is it not producing the results that we're looking for. Now, you take another path and you say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go back to those original 12 visibility actions. And this time, with those 12 visibility actions and 8,000 impressions, still 200 engaged audience, but now I got 20 qualified conversations and 10% recognition. Okay, $100,000 revenue. I got the same level of visibility, but stronger recognition. Same number of people, I believe. Right, let me see. Yeah, same number of amount of engaged audience, but better understanding, better recognition. What do you do? Why does it matter to me? Okay. So when we compare these, so you double down and you still only hit 60. But when you corrected, I don't say corrected, but when you improved the recognition within those engaged participants, then you were able to hit your revenue target. And it's not about volume, right? Doing more and less clarity. In this case, it's all you did was you were more intentional about the way you went about demand generation in such a way that the engaged audience, in person, however it is, generated more qualified conversations. In other words, they know what problem you solve. They recognize themselves in your communication and took action as a result. Okay. Now, the thing to keep in mind too is that the recognition, when you lose that recognition, it doesn't just affect the demand generation. It affects everything because you're making decisions downstream about your business based on this amount of recognition, right? So demand can be unstable. The conversion pressure rises because you're like, oh my gosh, okay, I invested in this. I need these leads to convert. Or capacity gets distorted because you're thinking, okay, I have this much volume. I'm going to convert this. This is my sales projection. Oh, I better get someone in here to help with that. And your cash confidence drops because you're really just not sure how it's going to convert. This is the answer. The whole system reacts under unclear signal. Okay. So you can keep increasing visibility. You can continue to do that. It's completely okay. Or you can confirm where the visibility is becoming qualified signal, revenue signal. Because when you have the qualified signal, then you get more conversations. What does that look like? How do we do that? So the way that we do that and the way that we confirm that the visibility is creating qualified conversations is we need to look at the revenue system and see where exactly what is being impacted by the decisions we're making, and where do we need to focus to have better visibility. What do we need to communicate? How are we tracking that? How are we able to make an impact on how we're recognized in the marketplace?